What's up guys, it's me, Rhoku, back with some more League of Legends content, and today I'm bringing you a video that I've been asked about non-stop ever since we got the news. And for those of you who haven't got the news yet, Riot is doing a massive Bruiser item rework where they're changing most Bruiser items, and the changes are just shifts in stats in some versus complete reworks in other cases. So things are going to get very, very, very interesting. I'm going to talk about every single change, what exactly they changed. Then I'm going to talk about how it impacts whether the item is going to be built more or less, or if it's not going to impact the item's viability at all. And more importantly, I'll be trying to discuss how the builds of Bruiser champions are changed in general, and especially Darius. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to start off with the more important things. So the first few items that I'm going to cover are going to be super, super important. Then the last ones are going to be either less important or just changes that will do nothing in my opinion. So yeah, let's just get right into it. The most important item changes, in my opinion, are ones done to Triforce, Sterak, and Death's Dance. Relatively, Triforce is less of a change with these two, but to understand why Sterak is so strong, you have to understand why Triforce is also buffed as well. So what they've done to Triforce is they've added 100 health, and this sounds very like a simple change. It's just 100 health, right? But it's actually so huge because Triforce lacked in health compared to every single other Bruiser mythic. You know, Goredrinker, Divine Sunderer, even Stridebreaker had 300 at least. So whenever you build Triforce, there'll be a moment where you'll be super, super squishy. So after you build Triforce, if you died before you finish your Sterak, your snowball would basically just crumble. Because with Darius, if you just die after you're ahead, you just put down very, very behind. So Triforce having that lack of health gave the enemy a window of time to put you down, and that window just got a little bit smaller. This 100 health is absolutely huge for Triforce, and in my honest opinion, it is now the main item you want to build for Darius in most of your games. They have nerfed it in that they've basically halved the amount of base AD you get from attacking. Before it was 6% base AD per stack, but now you get 3, which kind of sucks, but not really because of reasons we're going to get into now, because this base AD doesn't just go back into the Sheen, it also goes into Sterak. Sterak has gotten a massive, massive, massive rework, and for those of you who are veterans who've been around for longer, like previous seasons, you realize that this is basically what Sterak used to be, exactly 1-for-1 in Season 10. It doesn't give just straight AD anymore, it gives you AD that is equal to your base AD. So the way this works is that it takes 40% of a champion's base AD, so the blue number 108, multiplies it by 0.4, so in this case it will be 43.2, and then it adds that to your base amount as bonus damage. So it adds bonus damage, but this bonus damage scales off of your base damage. So champions that are juggernauts and stuff are going to make massive usage of Sterak. And by the way, I have the extra AD because I took a AD in the runes right here, so there's that 5 that's missing from this overall equation, I guess. So yeah, Sterak is basically going to give you AD every time you level up, and the item is going to scale alongside with you, right? And the crazy part is Triforce gives us base AD. So the base AD that Triforce gives us will go into Sterak as well. So the longer the fight goes, with Conquer, with Triforce, with Sterak, you're going to do a ton of damage once you're at your full form in Noxian Might. So Darius is looking very, very, very spicy with these new items. I would actually argue that he's going to be quite overpowered once they've actually hit the life patches. Although the shielding of Sterak's Gage is a bit weaker, because what they've done is that, like, the shield is better in 1v1 scenarios, okay? So it just gives you a flat amount of shield that scales off your HP, but the previous Sterak shield would give you like a non-decaying shield that will last 4 seconds instead of 3, which would scale off of how many people you're in combat with, okay? So the Sterak shield is worse in team fights, but better in smaller fights against up to 2 people. But I feel like Sterak being back to the way it was and integrating with Triforce even better has made this a very, very, very powerful combination again. So Triforce Sterak is now our go-to for 90% of our games. And The third super impactful change is what they've done to Death's Stance. I honestly don't know what they were smoking when they were changing Death's Stance, but this is insane. Ignore Pain, which is the effect that, like, whenever you take damage, it basically delays like a third of the damage. It not only works for AD anymore, but it also works for magic damage. So Ignore Pain works now for magic damage, which is absolutely huge. Before, you could only build Death Stance against AD teams, and once you did build them, you just get one shot by their mages, right? But not anymore. Now it's like it works against both physical damage and magical damage, which is absolutely huge, despite the fact that it only gives armor. So if you actually build, like, let's say, you know, like Merc Treads in lane, then you should be pretty good to go. And if you're super fed, this 3-item build of Triforce, Sterak, and Death Stance is just massive. It is absolutely massive, okay? So they've reduced the overall damage that it delays by 5%, but they've added magic damage to it as well, which is absolutely massive. And they've also changed the Defy passive. So it cleanses the damage that was ignored, like it was previously, but they've made it so that the damage that you heal by scales off of your bonus AD, not your health, your bonus AD, which is absolutely crazy when you consider how much AD we're going to get with this build. So it's like, let's just combo this guy, stack everything up. Stack up Conquer. Right, I'm just going to keep, like, we have so much AD right now, right? Stax is giving us AD, this is giving us, like, bonus AD, and this is going to heal us for 457, which is way more. Before, with a normal build, Death Dance would heal, like, 300 or so, or 400 or 500 tops, like, super late game. But now, it's going to heal you, like, 100 to 200 more than what it used to, and then later on in the game you go, the more it's gonna heal, because guess what, Darius' stat increases when he levels up are insane. So level 18, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of AD, tons of healing, just everything just buffing you up all across the board, okay? This build is, I think, the go-to build for 99% of your games. Just Triforce, Sterak, Death Stance. Triforce, Sterak, Death Stance. And yes, because they did buff Sterak in the 1v1, you still have to go Sterak second. I've seen some people tell me that, can I go Death Stance second? No, Sterak is way too powerful to give up, especially because of how well it combos with Triforce. But yeah, this 3-item build is gonna be nuts. Like, just, I can't believe that they will put this into the game, because Darius is going to be so powerful if he's allowed to leave lane right now. Like, if Darius gets fed, he can basically just 1v9 games because of how much this heals him. Let's just take a look at how much it can go up to. That's 600 AD. Stax is giving us 70, this is giving us a ton, and we're gonna heal for 757 health. Like, that is insane. That is a third of our health, basically. Like, it's just so crazy. Right, well, it's not a third, it's a bit less. But still, it's more like a quarter, actually. But yeah, right, you guys get the idea. This is an insane change that they've done to Death Stance, to Sterak, and they've changed up Triforce to be even more buildable. So this is your build for most of your games. I'm saying it again because it's just that important, okay? So yeah, I'm honestly super excited for these changes, but I'm also afraid because this will definitely make Darius overpowered. Like, 100% this will make him overpowered, okay? So just patch 12.3, get ready to abuse Darius as much as possible, okay? Triforce overall is going to be built way more, honestly, because the extra HP just makes it so that it's powerful enough to build over Divine Sunderer. So all of these Sheen abusing items like Camille, Jackson, etc., if they start feeding Divine Sunderer, but if they get fed, then Triforce is way more worth it. Sterak's Gage, it's kind of changed in usability because of how they've, you know, switched around the shield. And the champions that build Sterak from now on will be those that have a ton of base AD, okay? So for champions who don't really have that much base AD, you won't be seeing Sterak that much, or you will, but it won't be that powerful as before. So Sterak's Gage is now definitively made for big, beefy juggernauts who just want to stay in the fight. Your Dariuses, your Sets, your Ilawis, champions like that, basically. Death Stance is going to be more powerful for everyone, right? I don't know what they've been thinking, but this item is going to be completely overpowered. Like, everyone's going to build this item and they're going to love it, right? Like, your Rivens, who they just stack 80 anyway, right? So they're going to get way more healing from this. Just everybody's going to love Death Stance, so they're going to actually nerf this item because you know, we all know that some jungle champion is going to abuse it, and then Riot's going to nerf it, because Riot doesn't nerf for top lane, they're nerf when top lane items are abused by other champions. All right. All right, let's just get down to the other items and things that Riot have changed to basically update the fighter items. The first thing we're going to cover is Divine Sunderer. So they've not added too many changes to this item. All they've done is shifted the stats around, so less health, more AD, and they've changed the build path so that it no longer has Phage, but it has Caulfield's Warhammer, okay? I think that they're kind of pushing Divine Sunderer for mobile fighters and split pushers who kind of just like to jump around, because removing HP from this item only makes it weaker for more immobile champions and juggernauts and stuff like that. So I think Riot is pushing this to be used by champions like Camille, Jackson, etc. But the weird thing is, right, those champions are just going to like gravitate towards Triforce anyway, but maybe there's going to be an actually intelligent choice between the two instead of everybody building Divine Sunderer, so that's okay to see. In my opinion, Divine Sunderer should not give magic penetration. That's just a very stupid stat. There are very few champions make use of this magic pen, so in my opinion, they should take this away and put in health or something, right? I think adding health to Divine Sunderer, like right here, will be a very nice change indeed. Now let's get on to the Goredrinker. The changes to Goredrinker in terms of like how they shifted the stats around are absolutely massive, because Goredrinker is now the Bruiser item, or the Bruiser mythic, with the highest amount of AD at 55, which is absolutely huge. They have reduced the health, but now Goredrinker has a very clear purpose. It is the item you're going for damage, basically, if you aren't really an auto attack abuser, right? So if you're not an auto attack user that can use Triforce, this is the item you go for damage, like for your Fioras, for your Rivens, etc. The additional AD is going to be massive for a lot of these mobile fighter bruisers, and the health, although it's going to be missed by juggernauts and stuff, it won't be missed too much, because the thing with a lot of champions who build Goredrinker is that if they do more damage, they heal more through lifesteal Omnivamp anyway, so I feel like this is an overall buff to Goredrinker. I do think it is a nerf that you can't build Phage for Goredrinker anymore, because this is also similar for Divine Sunderer, because Phage is honestly one of the most powerful epic items in the game, because the HP regen is absolutely massive and is a very nice ball of stats to get. So the fact that you can't get Phage to build into Goredrinker and Divine Sunderer is a bit of a nerf when building up to these items, but still, Riot has pushed them into new directions, so I feel like Caulfield's Warhammer fits these new directions and purposes a bit better. So if you're playing a champion that's ability reliant, like your Aatrox and stuff like that, then Goredrinker is your go-to set as well. They actually haven't done anything to Stridebreaker, which completely surprised me, but I think we can all tell that it's time we put this item into the grave where it's never going to leave. Stridebreaker, it was basically just a crutch item that we built for the move speed and the slow anyway, but now it is even more useless because all these other items have basically just, they're going to outdo everything you'd want to do for basically every single champion. So I don't think anybody's going to build Stridebreaker anymore. As for Darius specifically, I still don't think Stridebreaker is that much worth it, because for most of your games, you're running Triforce. And for the few games where you're up against like annoying team compositions, it's actually more beneficial to go for tank mythics than go for Stridebreaker, okay? I'll make a video on this in a future date. I have been running tank mythics a lot, but for now, let's just cover the Bruiser item update. All right, now that we're done with the updated mythics, let's talk about the updated legendaries. So an item that I know for a fact that I'll be asked a lot of questions about is Black Cleaver. Is it better now? Is it worse now? Let's talk about it. So what they've done to this item is that they've taken out health and they've given it more ability haste and more attack damage. And honestly, this is a pretty decent just ball of stats for a lot of champions. And Darius isn't one of them, unfortunately. Basically speaking, for the champions who would like to go Goredrinker, pairing it up with Black Cleaver is going to be absolutely massive, because it gives a lot of AD, it gives a lot of ability haste, a lot of health, but you know, those stats aren't really that useful on all attack abusers that like to go Triforce and Divine Sunderer, or on Darius. So you're not going to be going this if you're like, you know, a Darius player, for example, or a Jax player or a Camille player. But if you are like an Aatrox player or a Riven player, something like that, then Black Cleaver is going to be huge for you. And Riven specifically is going to be loving this fighter update, by the way, because every single one of our items is getting buffed. But still, right? Black Cleaver, I think it's now a better ball of stats than it used to be because they're really pushing it for ability spammers, right? They're pushing it for ability spammers, which gives it a role. Whereas before, like, it was still built by ability spammers, but it was just not that, like, you know, powerful. Like, all it was just a ball of stats, and it weighed too heavily on HP. That was the problem with Black Cleaver before. It weighed too heavily on HP, but now that they've taken out some of the HP and given it more offensive stats, I think it is far more powerful, or not far more powerful, but just more buildable for a lot of these ability spammer champions. Ravenous Hydra has gotten a tiny buff of just 5 attack damage, which I think it solidifies its place as the Bruiser item with the most attack damage. So your Fjords are gonna love this, your Rivens are gonna love this. A lot of champions are gonna love this Ravenous Hydra buff now because it really is just super, super powerful, and it solidifies its place as the sustained wave clear item for champions who are lacking in those departments. Another change is for Blade of the Ruined King. They've basically increased the amount of on-hit damage by 2%, which is absolutely massive, because keep in mind, the Aurelias and stuff who build this, they proc the passive like 5-10 times in every single fight, so that's just an insane amount of damage on top of everything. They have increased the overall price of it by 100, so there is that to consider, but Bork has gotten a massive buff, and like, it's gonna be a way harder hitting first item purchase than before, okay? So champions who like to rush this item to really win the lane early are gonna just love it way, way more. But the kind of issue that I'm seeing right now is that some of the other items are so powerful that if the Bork builder doesn't just win lane right then and there with Bork, they're going to be in trouble, basically. So yeah, Bork is far more powerful for like your Aurelias. You can also rush it on set, but I don't recommend Bork set at all. Just champions that want to cheese the lane, it's pretty good, but some of the items just got way more power from this update. A smaller change is that they've decreased the price of Hearthbound Axe, which is, I think, very, very nice, because Hearthbound Axe itself didn't have that many stats, right? The combined cost was not really actually worth it in the stats and stuff you got, so I'm kind of glad they reduced the price of this. They obviously did adjust the combined costs of items so that it does remain at the same price, but yeah, this is an overall good change for the build paths of a lot of champions. I've saved the worst change for last, and I don't mean worse by toxicity, I just mean worse in terms of effectiveness. Maw of Malmortius was always this super weird, awkward item that nobody built, because why build Maw when you can just build Sterak's, right? Like, Sterak's shield worked against everything, and it also gave you health, it gave you AD as well, so it basically filled the role of Maw better than Maw. Like, even if you were up against magic damage sources, Sterak's would be better than Maw, which is absolutely insane. Okay, so Maw is just in a very, very horrible state, and they've changed it quite a bit. So let's just take a look at the changes. So the first change is that they've added AD to it. They've added 5 AD to Maw, bringing it from 50 to 55. And they've also done this to Goredrinker, by the way, 5 AD as well here. They've also added 5 more ability haste, which I guess makes it a better, like, you know, offensive purchase. But the big issue is that, like, the shield is just not big enough. It's like this shield is just not enough, man. It's like, it's so not enough, because even with like 3 items, you don't even have to build a lot of bonus HP. The Sterak shield will be larger than Maw of Malmortius, okay? So with Sterak's existing, there's absolutely no reason to build Maw. They've also added the old effect of, like, whenever Lifeline triggers, you get 12% on your vamp until you stop fighting. It was a very nice thing that the item had that they removed for no reason to make it useless again, but I still don't see Maw of Malmortius being that useful. In my opinion, if they want to make this item and just save it, they have to remove the ability haste and add HP, okay? Because the basic issue with this item is that although it does give you better offensive stats than Sterak's, the defensive part about it is never going to be as good as Sterak's, basically, okay? So if they want to save this item, they should add some HP and basically just make it that it's the Steraks you get versus teams that have a lot of magic damage, okay? Because that is essentially what it exactly is, except Steraks is good against magic damage anyway, so nobody gets this item. The changes they've done to this item, I don't think will change the builds of anybody. Nobody's going to build this item unless they want to cheese lane with Hexdrinker, but even then, they'll just sit on Hexdrinker and not upgrade to Maw of Malmortius until the very end of the game. So, yeah. Alright, that is pretty much it for this video. Overall, I think that these changes, although a lot of them are in the right direction, I think the mythics are being pushed in the right direction. Sterak is going to need a buff or a change later on, but it's an overall decent place they're taking the mythics. As for the legendaries, I think they're doing an okay job with most of them. Just the one change that I think is absolutely insane is what they've done to Death Stance. This item is way too overpowered, way too generally applicable by every single bruiser, and not even like fighter assassin champions will find usage with this item because they build a ton of AD anyway, right? So yeah, Death Stance is going to be an absolutely massive item in the new patch, and I am afraid they're going to nerf it the patch after, just straight after 12.4 basically. But for 12.3, you want to go get your Triforce, get your Steraks, get your Death Stance, and abuse these items to get that LP while you can. Darius is back. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.